Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, after the Red Raiders fall to Texas Christian over the weekend, is the Fat Lady tuning up? Is there any hope left alive in West Texas? We explore next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to have you along for the ride once again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. He's the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Always appreciate being your first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Do subscribe on YouTube if you haven't so far, so you never miss an episode. Chris, great to be back with you, kicking off another week in West Texas. Unfortunately, not kicking it off the way that we wanted to kick it off, talking about another Red Raider win over the weekend as they are close but without cigars, falling to top 25 Texas Christian in your building. 83-82, the final score, 1 point difference. Great game from a fan perspective, Chris, but man, I've used this note before. Hair-pulling levels of frustration at the end of the day as you once again observe how close you are, while simultaneously how far away you are at the same time from being the kind of team you want to be, man. Just the heights of frustration once again.
Yeah, that's what's maddening about this team is that you've been in so many of these games, and that's the most frustrating part. It would be easy to process if you're just getting blown out or if you're just simply not as talented or as competitive or whatever. But you make sure that you have a chance to win some of these games. And I I thought over the weekend, I thought TCU controlled that game from tip to tip for the most part. And I thought it, to Tech's credit, to really get back over the hump and like take the lead at the end, I thought that took a lot. And two, I think TCU has a lot to do with this, but I thought Texas Tech kind of reverted back to kind of some of the porous defense that we had seen.
Yes.
They just couldn't guard TCU. I guess I don't know if they reverted back or whatever, but the statement holds true. They just couldn't guard them and had a hard time guarding them, which is why Mark Adams, probably as painful as it is, decides I'm going to play a lot of zone in the second half. We're going to get in this 2-3 and kind of do some different things and Jamie Dixon in the first half, Mark Adams had to call timeout, and he's walking on the floor, and Mike Miles is walking toward him, and he says they can't guard us. And I mean, for the most part that day, he was right.
Yeah, that's really what I'm thinking at the end of the day, Chris. I don't even know how Texas Tech had a lead or was in a position to win that game in the final few minutes, because just through the first 20 minutes, I don't know if it was because of the perspective. I was a little higher up. I have no idea why it was so apparent to me. Maybe Texas Christian was just making it that apparent. And this is the worst part of maybe the show. I've got to give credit to the Horned Frogs almost entirely. I didn't see like Texas Tech defensive intensity, lagging or anything like that. But you were out of position so many times just in the first 20 minutes. Like there were so many points that were left on the board that Texas Christian never got. And it wasn't just from like a missed shot here or there. It was, a missed pass, guy open near the basket they didn't happen to see this time. But Texas Tech defensively was like a Chinese fire drill at a stoplight. I mean, they were scrambling, and it was all due, in my opinion, to Texas Christian moving without the ball and moving the basketball, Chris. I really, really have to credit the people in purple, because through those first 20 minutes, I was thinking, man, Texas Christian is a lot better than we are. They're a lot better basketball team than we are. And I don't know if the talent level is all that disparate. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But either way, the way that they play as a team, and just talking offensively here, the way they play as a team was really something to watch. And I think it should have been worse at halftime for Texas Tech than it actually was if the Frogs were taking advantage of everything. But I really just got to tip my cap to them, because for about the first 10 minutes of the basketball game, I'm just kind of sitting there with a horrified look on my face thinking, wow, this could be a really, really long day if the Red Raiders are continuing to be unable to really track what Texas Christian was doing offensively. So I would give all the credit to those in purple, man. I just thought that they looked like a top 25 basketball team. They looked like a team that played together, looked like a team that had some synergy and some chemistry. And I know some of that has come along for Texas Tech as the season has gone along, but I just can't say you're anywhere near the same level, obviously, as a top 25 basketball team, and one that, due to some health, maybe flying a little bit under the radar as far as a seeding or a national perspective. But with Miles back on the floor, man, those dudes are juicy and then some. So I hate it, but I'm giving a lot of credit to Texas Christian today.
Yeah, several things there. One, they share the sugar, I think is the way, you talk about it. Yeah, they do. They made the extra pass. Casey, they have, in 2 games against you, they have scored 96 points in the paint against you. I mean, in the paint, right there in the colored area, man. And they are like go against really all the analytics out there because everybody shoots threes. Everybody shoots a lot of threes. TCU shot more in this game than they had been, but they only make about 4 a game on average in Big 12 play. Okay, so they are like the exception. Okay, because everybody else is making 7 or 8 of these on average. They make half of that, but it's because they're so good moving without the ball, and they get you spread out, and then they cut off the ball, and it's like layup, and they're also extremely good in transition. So Ball and Miles, if they get the ball and get going downhill, and you're just not you're not built for that. And I was going to say was the one thing that I thought was fascinating to me is that, look, Bacho doesn't play for you. And Fardaws is going to play for you on Saturday, but we show up to the building over the weekend, and you realize Eddie Lampkin, their starting center, he's not going to play. I wish he had played because I just think he's the one guy that slows them down a bit, and you can kind of pick on him. And ball screen coverage, you can kind of pull him away from the basket and really kind of, I mean, he's a guy that you can pick on defensively. He's going to get some rebounds, and he's their energy guy. I mean, he was taunting the students after every made basket for TCU and all that stuff. But I mean, I kind of gathered that there was some kind of wondering, like, is he really sore? Like, because apparently his ankle has bothered him. But anyway, and TCU had lost 5 of 6 coming into that one, so they had a sense of urgency. You could tell after losing to Kansas. Yeah, like this is how Eddie Lampkin rolls. I think after they go hammer Kansas and Lawrence, he takes the game ball. Into the locker room. They're taking pictures of it. So I think Kansas actually, after they got the win over in Fort Worth earlier the week, I think they took the game ball, but that's all Eddie Lampkin driven. Yeah.
I love that little peek behind the petty curtain.
Yeah, that's right. So, but I just think because he didn't play, they are faster, a little more athletic, and that worked against you, I think. As I'm sitting there looking at it, watching it play out after the fact, I thought, you know what? I think it would have been better if he'd have played. So anyway, you just had a golden opportunity, man, and just couldn't quite take advantage of it. You were ever so close.
Well, we'll get to what's coming up next and what is still there as far as a window of opportunity for Texas Tech, if there is such a thing, because obviously as you drop this one at home, you're basically now a 6th grade kid with no rhythm. You're so flat against the wall. At a junior high dance, you are the wallflower. I don't know like what there is out there for Texas Tech to look at and say, all right, here's the little sliver that we could shimmy through, but it's got to start with a win. And let me check my notes. Oh, and Lawrence, Kansas.
I always wondered that.
It's got to start.
I always wondered that, like the middle school dance, right? And it's slow. It's slow dance, right? And the guys' hands go on the girls' hips, and you just kind of sway back and forth. And the girls' hands just hang up above the shoulders. Yeah, like that. Why was it never like reversed? Why was Well,
it probably is in San Francisco, Chris. I don't know. In Lamb County, though, the man needed to have the hands on the hips there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Keep the hands above the equator, I think was the rule.
It's like you're at the skating rink back when you're a
That's
little
right.
kid, and they
That's
drop
right.
the lights and they got the disco ball. It's like, we're gonna slow it down.
You got the lady walking around with the ruler.
Yeah,
See some daylight.
couples dance.
And my mother gave me great advice before the first dance I ever went to. She said, there's not going to be a girl there that's excited about hanging out with the wallflower. So get your back up off the wall. That was my mother's original line. Bruno or whoever was kicking that one out stole it from my mother. A hip gal. So we'll get to that path, Chris, but we just talked about some of what stunk. And a lot of what stunk was just that Texas Christian was really good. Again, give credit to the Horned Frogs. But you still had a chance to win this game. You lose it by 1 point. So what did Texas Tech actually do well down the stretch or at different points to give themselves that opportunity? What stood out to you? But first, today's episode brought to you by Built Bar. You're looking for a delicious treat, but you're not looking for all the fat, all the calories. I got what you need. It's Built Bar. What makes them so good? For starters, covered in 100% real chocolate. You got it. Real chocolate. And they come in unbelievably delicious flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, or coconut almond. Not sure how they do it, but they taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better, they're good for you. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. Even better now, not only can you get them at BuiltBar.com, but you can get them at your nearest Walmart, your nearest Sam's Club. Get there today and get in on something that tastes great and is great for you. You can thank me later after you've tried your first Built Bar. So what did Texas Tech actually do well down the stretch or at different points to give themselves that opportunity? What stood out to you?
Well, I thought Davion Harmon started to penetrate their defense a little bit. He really was meaningful with what he was doing late in the game, and I think we hadn't seen a lot of that in the early part. They just, it seemed like Tech settled for a lot of jumpers, perimeter looks early in the clock. TCU, as you mentioned, they are making the extra pass. They're moving the ball. There's not a lot of dribbling there, and I just think sometimes Texas Tech in general over dribbles. But I thought they really started to get the more meaningful dribbles, I guess, late in the game, and I thought that kind of opened it up. And then you started to get a few stops. It was too little, too late, I guess, as we would end up finding out. But I thought you started to get some stops. And you mentioned it earlier. TCU still got plenty of good looks. They missed some looks around the rim, 5-foot jumpers, little hook shots, just things that they were good shots that just didn't go in. So you dodged a bullet there. But, I just thought Texas Tech's intensity kind of lifted a bit late in the game. Because, again, this was extremely meaningful. And, I think that it led to a lot of frustration, and you could sense it from the fans and I think coaches. It's just kind of a deflating type outcome. But you had played so well in the last 2 to 3 weeks, and you had created this opportunity for yourself. And it's just right there. And I knew that the TCU one would be tough. I don't know how you'll play against, like, say, as we look ahead, Oklahoma State over the weekend. They're not near as good as TCU is. They're not near as talented offensively. But that's TCU's a hard guard. And I think, if anything, Cowan, I think it's fair to criticize why is TCU's record as poor as it is. Because I think they should be, even without Mike Miles a bit. I mean, I just see way too much for them to barely be 500 in the league. Because they're deep, experienced, talented, and they've got all the pieces.
Yeah, you really hate to see it. Pop Isaacs, man, 6 points on the day, 2 for 6 from beyond the arc, 2 for 7 from the field. He was engaged. Was Texas Christian doing something specific to Pop Isaacs, you think, that limited him? Did he just have a tough day shooting? What would you see from Pop?
TCU is built much like you were last year, in that they are really 6. I mean, Mike Miles is the lone exception, but everybody else is in the 6'5" to 6'7" range everywhere. And then in some cases, a little bit taller than that. I think he had a hard time with their length at times. And I think Mike Miles is about as quick as anybody. You're going to look, TCU gives up 82 points to you,
Yeah.
but I thought they played really good defense on you for the most part. I thought they forced you into settling. Their length makes it more difficult to try to get into the lane and things like that. And we know what Pop's game is. He wants to burn you if there's any open space, and if you start to overplay it, he'll drive it on occasion. But their length, I thought, really bothered him. And then Mike Miles was kind of manned up on him quite a bit too, and that's a tough guard. I mean, the guy's a fascinating player. I don't like how much shit he talks. Excuse my language here, but he's literally looking over at the bench and he's like, y'all can't bleep with me. I mean, over and over again. He's like, and then he's taunting the people in the front row, just over and over and over again. But man, he backed it up. He backed it up. And he's fascinating because he's a right-handed player. This is what he shoots, everything right-handed. However, he goes left with everything. He's better going left, even though he's right-handed. It's the most bizarre thing ever, but he's just a pain to try to guard. And he gets the free throw line seemingly kind of whenever he wants.
Oof, yeah, 6 for 7 on the day, and that kind of seemed like it could have been a whole lot more at the charity stripe for Miles. And yeah, running his mouth, he's all class and is going to be great for the future of the game. There's no question about that. And what makes it even worse is that he backed it up. So what the hell can you say? Me, right? You hate to see it, but do something about it if you hate to see it that bad. Before we move on, Chris, to other bigger picture items, Pop Isaacs, we mentioned him, and now I'm thinking about this play. You lose a 1-point game that involves a flop call on Isaacs, right? As a shooter, this is a thing that happened, I think. You get a free throw going the other way. And I don't know, like, the origins of the flop and this now being a call that's a part of basketball, very frustrating to me, Chris, because this is only rooted in the stupidity of officials. The way that this is broken down over this number of years now, in the sense that you're going to sit here and basically put it on the player to stop fooling me. Now you quit trying to fool me. That's bad. Don't try to fool me anymore, because I've been getting fooled a lot over the years, is basically what the official argument would be. So as a result of them being unable to determine what is a foul or what is a race to a point on the floor that leads to a foul, as in a charge, what is brutal, violent contact, and what is a flop, because of their inability to do that, now we got a new rule. There are like so many parallels here with the way that government works and all these different kinds of things as it relates to rule meisters. Hey, create a problem and then create a new rule that'll address that problem that you created initially and probably lead to other problems that you haven't foreseen. I was smoke out the ears when I see these calls in games now, Chris. It's one of those things I guess we got to get used to as basketball fans. And I don't know how the entire process works out of, like, what do you get, warnings and stuff like this, I suppose. So whatever. But when you're in a tight game and you have something like that impacting a game, it's the heights of frustration to me, because it only, in my opinion, comes back to an official's inability to make the correct call. And so since they couldn't do that, now they're putting it on the player. Don't try and force me to make a correct call and maybe a possibly tight situation. I'm just going to call you a flop and blow the whistle and go the other way. I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm having a very hard time coming to grips with this being a part of basketball now. And yes, I am biased against officials, so my argument is rooted in that as well. Where do you sit with this kind of stuff, man? Because this is a new generation version of basketball.
Yeah, it is, and I think that it's kind of like a culture type thing, like basketball culture, and that guy, and it trickles down NBA. They tried to do a better job of, like, because how frustrating was it to watch James Harden over the years? It's like, yes, he kind of gets you. If he could get underneath you, it's like, oh, I got you, and then it's blow the whistle. It's not entertaining to watch. And like I've tricked you into getting to the free throw line 20 times a game, right. And I think way too many guys, because it's a 3-and-D type game these days. Okay, everybody is all about the three and layups, and I think with the flop stuff, I think there's way too many shooters out there that would just fall down as a habit, just trying to see if there's something else there, see if they could get lucky. And I think, too, there's a lot of shooters that kick their leg out as well. Like the cylinder warning and all that. And it's just a different game. But you nailed it. I mean, it's essentially – officials have been baited into making calls, for the last several years, and so I think that the folks that the committee that looks at this stuff was like, if you do try to bait us into it and we catch you doing it, like we're going to punish you, and it's just a free throw. That's all it ultimately is. It's pop calls is called for it. It's no personal foul. But see, there for a couple of years, there was a flop warning. Okay, so they would warn you.
Yeah.
And now they've skipped that step.
Okay.
Now that if they catch you with it, and where it happens is these 3-point shots where the shooter kind of like goes down or whatever, or it's you take a fake charge. Like if you're sitting there and and you feel any kind of somebody breathe on you, you just kind of go down. If they catch you doing that, then
Chris, you played basketball. Here's the incentive to not do that. No call. What a fool have you ever felt like if you tried to do that and you're laying on the floor and probably every basketball player's had the ref go, give them the hands up and look at them like, I don't know what you're doing, bro. Right. I'm not calling you. That's humiliating. That's the incentive not to do it. Mm-hmm. It's not. I'm just so frustrated by the fact that we've now basically said to the officials, don't worry about it. You don't have to really think here. Just if you think they're trying to fool you, go ahead and give them a free throw. I mean, it matters. It matters. Certainly mattered in that game. And now that we've opened the bottle of going down that road, I don't know that you put the monkey or the genie or whoever was in that bottle back in. We're kind of down the road now.
And I didn't really care for Jamie Dixon's reaction on that particular call, as he was very he was very animated in it being a flop.
Oh, okay.
And here's why. He just kind of bothers me, I guess, a little bit. I just
never stops crying, man. Never stops crying.
No. And this is the same guy that is on the court a lot, okay? Yeah. And last year wasn't exactly on the court, but remember, your player stepped on his foot and went down.
Yes.
Yeah, and Kevin McCullough.
I remember.
Yeah, and so I think there was plenty of people immediately wanting to go to the video to find out if he was on the court or not, because that would have been quite the controversy had he.
It's
been
like Bob Huggins' stool, Chris.
Yeah.
We got $1 million baby situation developing just because this fat old man can't waddle to the bench, buddy. We got 25 seats over here. They're padded, real nice. Take a seat, friend. Dixon's one of the most annoying in the league. I remember the first time he came to Lubbock with Texas Christian. I was still sitting down on Media Row before I was excommunicated. And there have been some that have been really annoying. Bruce Pearl, probably number one on that list. Jamie Dixon was number two, though. And it was kind of funny because I'd only observed Jamie Dixon from afar, really nice suits at Pitt, and had won some games. And I kind of had a view of him as like, Big East basketball coach, kind of esteemed and maybe somebody I respect. And I suppose I don't necessarily have a lack of respect as a basketball coach, but boy, I thought he's annoying as hell. The first time I got to take him in from about 15 feet away. But credit his basketball team because they were able to come up with a win. Chris, let's get to now what Texas Tech has got to come up with to keep that fat lady from tuning up, because she is tuning up right now. There's no question about it. And Chris, let's get to now what Texas Tech has got to come up with to keep that fat lady from tuning up, because she is tuning up right now. There's no question about it. If the Red Raiders want to keep any tournament conversation alive whatsoever, you got to go on the road and get a win, right? There's absolutely no way around, other than like winning a conference tournament, obviously, but there's no way around in this regular season restoring an NCAA tournament resume at any point that makes you feel good if you're not a winner at Allen Fieldhouse. Am I saying that right? I mean, it feels kind of strange to put yourself in that position, but it's what we talked about Friday, right? It was a must-win weekend. You didn't get it, and now here's where your back is, and here's where the wall is. They are together.
Yeah, and the team that just beat you, they won by 20 in Lawrence, and then oddly enough, over the weekend, West Virginia, again near the bottom of the Big 12 standings, they take Kansas to the very end, and Joe Toussaint, who came off the bench in Lubbock and lit you up, he's got 19 seconds, and he just and I think they either were going to take the lead or tie the game, one of the two, and he just dribbles the ball like for 18 and a half seconds. They don't even get a shot up. My point is, Kansas barely beats West Virginia. They are beatable. They're not the juggernaut that we've seen in years past. But this will be senior night tomorrow night, and they're like 800-0 on senior night. It feels like. But to answer your question, you need there's two things that need to happen, and I've got a little gray area on the second one. But if you go 2-0, okay, nothing changes from what we talked about last week. If you go 2-0 this week, basically you just ended up beating Kansas instead of TCU, and truth be told, you'd rather it on paper be that way because winning in Kansas will be a much more impressive win on paper than beating TCU at home. We're just trying to be realistic here with this thing. And then you would have to beat Oklahoma State because that gives you your sixth and your seventh conference wins, both quad one opportunities, I believe. And I think that is enough to do it. But the only other way is if you are, and I would say if you play for a Big 12 tournament championship or win it, but you've now, I think, cemented your situation into where you're going to have to play. You would have to win 4 games in 4 days, and I just that's extremely difficult to try to do. To try to win that deal because you're gonna get stuck playing on Wednesday night now that you lost against TCU. And I guess there's minor gray area there. I think a lot of things would have to happen for you to get a higher than a 6 seed. You'd have to have a lot of folks losing because if you're 7, 8, 9, or 10, you're playing on that first night, which means you don't get a bye in this deal. And so, short of going 2-0 this week, and short of playing for or winning that league tournament, you're going to be looking at either the NIT or no postseason basketball. That's just this is where you're at. Not a lot of. I mean, you're only guaranteed 3 games left in your season. Cowan is. I mean, that's a small number. I mean, you've got 2 this week and then 1 in Kansas City. That's all you're guaranteed. So that one on Saturday was a monster opportunity.
Certainly disheartening from a fan standpoint. Luckily, it doesn't matter how the fans feel about it. What do you think's the vibe from the locker room? Deflated, disheartened, discouraged, defeated, or is still some wind in the sails? Because they have, including Saturday, by the way, they have just been within this month or so or 3-week period where they played their best basketball of the year. So it's kind of tough, I think, to sit there and just say, well, go ahead and handcuff us and take us away to the off-season dungeon. That's just a hope also as a fan that the locker room is more so resilient, I guess, and maybe will give themselves a chance this weekend. But Chris, if you don't believe it, if you don't have that mentality first and foremost, you won't give yourself a chance this weekend. What do you think the response will be to Saturday as far as the team's concerned?
Yeah, you'll learn early in that game versus Kansas. I mean, you'll learn a lot about the maturity of this basketball team too. Because look, you're arguably going against the toughest place in the entire country, at least this season, and with what they're a projected 1 seed, and it's senior night. I mean, you got all these layers here, so it's like you're arguably going into the toughest environment you could possibly go into. But in some ways you have nothing to lose, and in other ways the pressure is on Kansas. Okay, you're off of the bubble a bit now. Kansas has to win this game because of they can't give up any ground in trying to win the conference championship. So that's how I would approach it with Mark Adams. Hey, man, the pressure's on these guys. Like we need to be free and just kind of get back to it and just, keep swinging and see if we can give ourselves a chance here. But you'll learn a lot about the maturity of because, of course, I mean, Coach Adams didn't take any players to his post-game press conference. I mean, it's just you could just tell the wind came out of the balloon after that loss, and especially the way that it happened. Because, and we haven't talked about these two things, I think they either tried to or just didn't do near a good enough job of trying to foul with with that last TCU inbounds play, because they had a
Yep.
foul to give, trying to commit a foul without, because you're trying to make a play without giving up free throws. So you don't want to allow a shot to occur. You want to foul before that, but just don't get it done. And then 4-point-something seconds left. And I think Mark, admitted, granted, it's easy to say it now because what he ran, it didn't work and they didn't get exactly what they wanted to get off. But he wished he would have used his last timeout. But that's the age-old question. You use a timeout in a scenario in a late-game situation, you're allowing the defense to really get set up and kind of attack what you want to get done too. So it's like play it out, stop play, and then, who knows. But tough ending. But I'm curious to see how they do bounce back because only have so many opportunities left here.
Yeah, you've seen so many times in those closing moments where a coach has allowed his team to play on, doesn't call the timeout, they knock a shot down, and you're thinking, brilliant. Great move, not letting the defense so damned if you do, damned if you don't. Depends on, like you said before, the shot falling. The shot's going up. Good coach, good coach. Comes down, hits the rim, bounces off. Bad coach. Comes up, goes in the net. Good coach.
And if you watch the replay of that last sequence, because what you want in that scenario, you can dribble it about once per second. Okay, that would gives you an idea how far down the court you can get. If you get the ball inbounded, you got, you could take 4-ish dribbles before you need to get a shot up. But if you watch the replay of that last sequence, it takes a bit for Harmon to get the ball inbounded. And then if you watch, he gets doubled. And Kevin O'Banner could have basically attempted a wide open three from the top of the key. And he's just wide open. Hey, Davion just didn't kick it back to him. He kind of forced it up because basically Kevin's defender rotates over to Harmon just trying to stop it, and O'Banner was wide open. Again, easy to look at all that now, but that would have been the much better shot attempt. And O'Banner had just hit a monster three earlier that was contested and felt like it went through the top of the arena and came back down. So just frustrating. Just frustrating. Yeah. And that's kind of the theme with this year's team. It's just been frustrating. And part of it is because you've been so competitive and you've just been right there. It's like death by 1,000 paper cuts, man,
Yep. So close yet so far away. You're walking away with some regrets. That's never a fun feeling to have. I don't know if this is one of those games where you want to just burn the tape and get on to the next one, but maybe Coach Adams threw the tape up in the air yesterday and it was carried 110 miles per hour to East Texas, so you don't have to worry about it. But either way, Chris, still basketball left to be played, which means still opportunity out there for Texas Tech. So we'll see what the response is like on senior night in Lawrence, Kansas, an event so horrific it drove Pat Knight out of basketball entirely. I mean, you want to talk about putting on some dunk contests. I remember that era of Tech basketball. You go to Kansas. I mean, it seems like sometimes, Chris, you go to Kansas for the conference open and they're like, nah, senior night. It's Tech coming to town. Make it a senior night. Coach, we still got 20 games left to play. I don't care. Senior night. And then it's just a dunk contest back and forth up and down the floor. Little different in some recent history with Texas Tech going to Lawrence, Kansas. But, man, we need a whole lot different compared to the overall history when we get back to it coming up next for Texas Tech. And we'll be back to set the table for that one. On the other side, as the Red Raiders are back on the road, a place they've actually won 2 straight. So is there anything there to pick up on and continue to sustain? We'll find out as Tech stares square down the barrel of Bill Self's Adidas cash gun on loan from Snoop Dogg. I heard that it actually is not Bill Self's, just on loan. I don't know. My friend left it in the car, officer. It's not mine. I've never seen this. Chris, enjoyed the time as always, man. Processing a tough one once again. I guess my only regret is Tech didn't have about 8 guys to defend Texas Christian because you needed all the help you could get, man. But we'll be back at it, and we'll visit about it coming up tomorrow.
Sounds good, man. Keep hope alive, everybody.
You got it. And make Locked On College Basketball your second listen after Locked On Texas Tech. It's your one-stop college hoops shop right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. For Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Thanks for joining us as always. We'll see you on the other side for another round on Locked On Texas Tech.